second summer. And if you're new to this channel, go ahead and click like and subscribe. There's a little bell notification next to the subscribe button. It just lets you know when I actually post new videos. Otherwise, they won't let you know because the YouTubes be like that sometimes. So I just did a video on ghosting, and it was kind of like me ranting about things and rambling, but I want to follow that up really quickly with something that to me is kind of closely related to ghosting, in that it sets the mind on an open loop, but it is different. And I want to be the first to say that I am not any sort of like therapist or licensed professional or anything like that. This is just me discussing like things that have happened to me and like, you know, grains of stuff that I've picked up along the way. So please don't take this as any sort of counseling or anything like that. That's not the point of this video. Just this, you guys, the silent treatment, just like ghosting, it sucks. And one of the main topics that I talk about on this channel is communication, because I really wanted to create this channel to talk about relationships in general, and that be that business, you know, love, lifestyle as far as friends or like any of the things, and then career. All of those things have relationships involved, and to have quality relationships, you have to have communication. And it's something that I always struggled with. And again, this channel is also about all of the things that I've always struggled with. That's one of the reasons I made it, to make myself accountable to the things that I've always struggled with. And the more that I talk about them and work on them and practice them, the better I get at them. That's why I'm the first to say that, hey, I'm not perfect. If I screw something up, I admit it. And I'm like, hey, this week, didn't take my own advice, whatever. Like I had a comment the other day that told me that I didn't seem authentic and I seemed very shallow. Okay, lady, like that's cool, but the whole point of this channel is basically me like holding myself accountable and being authentic, especially when I screw up. So it's cool. If I don't vibe with you, like I can't blame you. That's been my whole life. Like I only get along with so many people. I can get along with them, but they might think that my personality sucks, but that's life and it's cool. And I'm confident enough to just be like, hey, if you don't like me, it's totally fine. Sorry. Not everyone's cup of tea, and neither are you. So whatever. But anyway, so what I was saying is communication is extremely important, especially as you progress in your career, as you progress in your relationships. And, you know, once you get into those dating relationships too, that are increasingly serious. And I know for me and my family growing up, one of the things was that, sorry, I'm getting messages. One of the things was that if someone was mad, they would do the silent treatment. And it really hurt me growing up. And I think I kind of forgot about it at some points, because it's like your brain almost cancels things out sometimes that like aren't great. And what I noticed when I started to get into dating relationships is that I would turn to that crutch that my family had used growing up, and I too would practice the silent treatment. And it was just so natural, but so detrimental to my relationships, because it's such a form of abuse, whether we realize it or not. Again, this is where I'm going to be very, very conscious and clear to say that I am not a counselor or anything like that. Feel free to look this up on your own, whatever you need to do. In my opinion, we'll just say it's all opinions, whether it's scientific or not. It's whatever. It's abusive, because it messes with people's brains. It really does. So I would be doing these things and it would really mess the other person up, and sometimes it would almost bring them closer to me because it's so manipulative. And I wouldn't realize that I was doing it because, again, it was like a crutch that I was falling back on. It was like, it wasn't on purpose. It was just kind of a side effect that I shut down when people upset me or when people tell me things that I don't want to hear. And getting back to what I was talking about, those are the things that I've been really diving into the past few years, and the things that I wanted to talk about and bring to light on my YouTube channel. These are very real issues that a lot of us, especially who grew up with like trauma and, you know, emotional or verbal abuse or whatever, that we dealt with and continue to deal with, and sometimes don't realize until you're faced with those situations. So again, I started like getting into these relationships, and like after we're past the honeymoon phase, the initial honeymoon phase, like months 2 to 3, mine would like end early because we would get into a little fight and I would like be triggered and I'd be like, I don't like this, and I would shut down. And then we're kind of in this weird hot and cold situation where there's just no communication, there's really no trust, and it's like dancing around eggshells, walking on eggshells all the time, and it's not healthy. So that's kind of the dynamic that silent treatment does. It just really, it's not healthy. And it actually like triggers pain receptors in the brain for the person who the silent treatment is being used on. It's not good. And again, look all this stuff up yourself. If you don't believe me, or, you know, if I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist or any of that stuff, just look it up yourself, whatever. Don't call me on it. I'm just ranting. It's like, I just want to like be very, very cautious, because like you can only say certain things, and I don't want anyone to like say that I'm trying to give, you know, advice above my pay grade, or however you want to say it. But this stuff is really, really important. So instead of doing the silent treatment, instead of shutting down when somebody opens up to you, especially like in a relationship, or even in like a new dating relationship or a friend relationship or at work or any of these things, I've noticed that for me, I just have to take it, and I try not to react. I really try to not even react in the moment, because I'm so easily triggered sometimes. It's gotten better over the past few years, but if I can like put up this almost like sticky wall where these words come at me and they stick to the wall in front of me, and I kind of put them away for later, they just hang out there, and I'm like, okay, that's how you feel, that's valid, let me think about it for a little bit. Okay, this is where it turns from the silent treatment to a progressive conversation. So some people will do that and they just won't talk to them for days. That's kind of when it becomes a silent treatment, in my opinion. But what you can do instead is let those words hit you and say, hey, I understand this is how you feel. I need some time to process everything you say so that I don't shut down what you're saying, but I can sift through my feelings and your feelings and can kind of go through all of the emotions that are happening. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to sit on this until tomorrow afternoon. I'll text you around 4 p.m. tomorrow, and if I'm ready by then, we can go ahead and have a conversation. Otherwise, I might need another day, but either way, regardless, I'll text you just so you know that I'm not trying to ignore you. Everything's okay. It's just, I need a little more time to think about this stuff. So isn't that nicer, just to know the time frame of what's happening, and kind of like, hey, this person isn't necessarily mad at me, they're just processing what's going on, even though it was kind of a tough conversation. But I feel heard. I feel like this person is attempting to practice empathy, and I might not love their response later, but at least I feel like respected, because they're taking the time to consider my opinions, and once they're ready, they'll come back to me in a manner in which we can actually have a dynamic conversation and talk like adults, hopefully in a caring and constructive way. See, any of that can apply too to any type of relationship, be it platonic, romantic, business, career, etc. It's just a more mature way to approach any sort of criticism or even a fight or just anything that could potentially have conflict. And the other thing is, it doesn't necessarily have to be conflict. You can use that sort of thing in a situation that could be uncomfortable, like somebody asking you to be a part of their business venture, for example. Like, hey, I really appreciate you approaching me with this. I need to sit on this for a while, but let me add a time frame to this for when I'll get back to you. Because time frames really help people, especially with anxiety. I know for me, I just struggle with this anxiety, and I found coping mechanisms, and a lot of those coping mechanisms have to do with planning. And that drives a lot of people crazy. People don't like that about me. But at the same time, I have to love myself enough to realize that that's some of my outlets that help me feel better and that work for me. And that's okay for now. So people that don't respect that and can't give me that or make fun of me for it, maybe just aren't really the best people for me right now. I'm learning to go with the flow. There are certain things that I can go with the flow on, but there are also certain things where I feel like my time is disrespected if you don't plan with me a little bit. So it's all just like this weird dance. We're all different, but we're all just working towards our own standards, developing our own standards, and figuring out what it is that make us feel good in life. And for those of us with anxiety, sometimes we have to find more constructive ways to deal with it. And sometimes planning is just one of those things. So again, attaching a time frame to things like conflict can really help that other person. Whereas you're not trying to give the silent treatment, you're actually trying to just process emotions. Communicate that. It's all about communication. And then the other person, should say, hey, I respect that you need time. Let me give you your time and space. And I appreciate that you're letting me know when I'll hear from you again. I really appreciate that. I hope our next conversation goes well, and I look forward to it. See, it's just like, it really disarms everybody involved. But the silent treatment is not... Some people do it on purpose to manipulate and hurt somebody. And in my most recent situation, that's what it felt like. And I don't like that. I don't like to be manipulated. Nobody likes to be manipulated. I know I've manipulated people in the past, but it wasn't really on purpose or anything. These are some of the things that we don't even realize that we learn, especially like from childhood and stuff like that. But I've really learned to become self-aware and to really not practice those things because they're so detrimental to other people. And like the silent treatment, when it's done on purpose, is abusive, and it's horrible, and it's not good, and it hurts the other person. It leaves them, with like this gaping wound in their mind, wondering what's going on, what's happening, and they feel so powerless. That feeling of having no power and no control over anything is just horrible. It's really, really horrible. It's painful. And again, it can trigger like an actual feeling of physical pain. It's not good. It's like, it can be very narcissistic for people who enjoy inflicting the silent treatment. It's just not good. So again, I am not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not any of those things. This is pure opinion. We'll say, go ahead and look it up however you choose to do. But we can even say all of this is in my opinion, in my past, how I've felt. That's the truth. And people who practice the silent treatment that don't mean to be abusive, that they just happen to do that because it's out of habit or out of how their family handled things, just like how I grew up. My advice to those people, because that was me, is that the more self-aware you become and the more you realize what your actions are and why you're doing those actions, you start to realize more healthy, subtle ways to handle those situations and your own issues, and to empathize with the other person and yourself. And again, you can take that situation and say, okay, I know myself well enough to know that I'm going to shut down for a little bit. I'm upset. Normally I would give the silent treatment, but I do care about this person and I care about myself. So how can I disarm the situation and still take time to process my emotions and come back to this later, but also give this person the kindness and respect that they deserve as far as communication goes. So those are just the discussions to have internally with yourself when you're faced with situations that would normally kind of trigger you. I know for me, like, I'm being very honest with you guys with all this stuff. That's why I think it's funny when someone called me like not authentic and shallow. I mean, my videos are pretty raw. Like, maybe I sound kind of blunt because I am blunt. All of this stuff is pretty real and raw. That's the point of how I am and why I did this channel and you know, whatever this channel is and who I am as a person, honestly. I don't really remember where I was going with that, but basically, like, I know that I have a lot of abandonment issues as a kid, and a lot of these things they get triggered, and I've had to learn self-soothing mechanisms to kind of talk with myself, like, why am I feeling this? What can I do to make myself feel better? Is this rational? If it's not rational, how can I handle this better? How can I disarm myself? What is the actual root of the issue? Is it this other person, or is it me just resorting to, you know, feelings from the past? It's a lot of this internal dialogue, and that for me has been a lifesaver, because instead of putting my own things on other people, instead I'm actually working through those things in the moment. I don't always handle them perfectly, but it helps me to become more habitual with handling emotions in a better way, including conflict, not doing the silent treatment, and handling abandonment issues better. So a lot of this comes back to you and your past and attachment issues, attachment styles, attachment trauma, all of that stuff. And that's where I want to definitely put a plug in for mental health, especially with COVID going on. This is a really big time, especially for mental health. And you're alone with yourself a lot. So now more than ever, which I think, you know, every day more than ever should be a thing, because I think mental health is always important. But if you need to talk to someone, if you're feeling a lot of feelings, a therapist or a professional is always a good idea. And looking into why you do what you do with somebody who can actually help you with that is, you know, a very, very worthwhile thing, in my opinion. I mean, I've gone to a therapist a few times, and she's like, I mean, I feel like I'm just here basically saying, like, agreeing with you because you're self-aware enough to know your exact issues and you're already working through them. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, so you basically just came here to kind of like talk through things with me that you already know? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. She's like, wow, that's impressive. And I'm like, thanks, it just feels good to get it off my chest and like out in the open. She's like, okay, well, whatever I can help with, but you're already like halfway there. And I'm like, cool, thanks. But it really does like really help to get some of that stuff out in the open. And again, with the pandemic and stuff, talking with a professional and starting to dig through issues that may be lingering can be really, really helpful in the long run. And why wait on something like that? So again, silent treatment, it's not good. There are healthier ways to handle things. And if not just for yourself, but for the other person. We always want to practice empathy, and communication, in my opinion, is one of the most kind, empathic things you can do for other people. It's so helpful, and it'll just make all aspects of your life better, especially those relationships that really matter to you. And I'm not perfect. I know that. So I'm not the poster child for this, but I promise you that I'm working on it every single day. And it's something that is very close to my own heart, because not only have I had it, you know, poor communication done to me and it hurts, but I've done that to other people and it's turned out poorly, and I grew up with that. So we want to break those patterns. We don't want to continue those patterns. We want to be the change. So be the change you want to see in the world. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, my name is Megan Summer. If you enjoyed this video, again, please hit like, go ahead and hit, cool story. Go ahead and hit subscribe. And hit the bell notifications. Hey, if you have any questions for me, as always, go ahead and drop them in the comment section, and I will consider making a video on it. Or if you would prefer that it be a little more anonymous, go ahead and email me at lovemegansummer@gmail.com. And again, I will consider making a video on your question. Or if you would like to speak with me one-on-one, I do have coaching options available at megansummer.com. They start as low as $25. Yes, it's very cheap. The other thing is, well, go ahead and follow me on Instagram at lovemegansummer so we can be friends. But you guys, so I'm actually gonna start selling some of my vintage clothing. Yeah, we all know that I'm obsessed. I showed these in my other video, but like look at my eye makeup. We got our eye makeup done today and we got our hair done. She just kind of didn't do a great job with my hair. She did a great job with my makeup, two different girls. Look at these shoes. So cool. That's what she did my eye makeup off of. Pretty cool. But so yeah, these aren't vintage, but my other pieces, like I'm gonna be selling a lot of vintage stuff and just some weird shirts, some really cool crop tops that I love. I don't know exactly where I'm gonna sell them yet, but I'll keep you guys updated. It's just fun having some different pieces in your wardrobe, and it just like really makes everything pop. Like this dress was super cheap from Shein, but those sneakers and like rings like this is a vintage ring. They just make things cool. It just like makes it all pop, kind of puts it all together. I love like the vintage plus modern feel. It's really fun. So I'll keep you updated when I have some of that available. And you can always, again, just reach out to me at lovemegansummer on Instagram or Gmail. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. Bye.